Here's the thing. I love a good crime thriller. I've been watching them ever since, well, forever. Like, Criminal Minds and Law and Order and, you name it. There are too many, actually. It's common knowledge that every crime thriller is, well, thrilling. But what exactly makes one good that captivates us? For me personally, that thing is the chase, or rather, the build and then the chase. A chance not only to see the cops connect the dots and evolve, but to also see the criminal grow in his own sense of the word, to see him evolve and then devolve. Just how long he gets away with his deeds, and what mistake does he make that leads him to getting caught. Finally, the scramble, the race to catch the criminal. In some movies or shows, this is settled by a long trial in court, with the prosecutors and defense finding new evidence till the last minute. Sometimes it's an actual race between the police cars and the criminal. Either way, at the end of the day, both scenarios depict the same thing, the chase. But I realize that this isn't the case for most people. Generally, they stick around just to understand his motive. After all, no crime can be committed without malicious intent, right? All these things several good crime thrillers have in common. But there's one more thing. Most crime thrillers, good or bad, have one more thing in common. The criminal is almost always a man. Think about it. Even in real life, when I say the words serial killer, most people think of Ted Bundy, Jeffrey Dahmer, Charles Manson, Jack the Ripper, even. And there's nothing wrong with that. In a topic as intense as this one, it's hard to imagine a woman at the crux of it all. But ultimately, more or less, half of the world's population is female, and we can't be blind to one half of a coin and still truthfully say we understand its value the same. Hi, I'm Crystal.
Hi, I'm Alicia.
Hi, I'm Asmita, and together we're Ace Entertainment. Welcome to the first ever episode of our podcast, Cut to the Chase, where we talk about true crime, unsolved mysteries, and generally all things strange and disturbing.
We make our debut to the podcasting world with a scene about, you guessed it, female serial killers. Because let's be real, no one does it better than women.
Statistically, women are 4 times more likely to get away with a violent crime than men. Not to mention, female serial killers accumulate more victims than their male counterparts, averaging at around 9 victims per offender compared to 6 victims for men.
So not only are they more elusive, they also do more damage.
Yeah, pretty much.
Also, because we support women's rights and wrongs in this show. In my opinion, women serial killers have more valid reasons as to why they are the way they are than male serial killers in a sense. And what better way to debut that with an episode about Aileen Wuornos? Her story is one that rocked the world. When you Google female serial killers, hers is the first name that pops up. Her case inspired elements for several crime thrillers, and she even had several films and books made after her own story. With good reason, of course. Her case combines pretty much every aspect of a good crime thriller. So let's cut to the chase.
Today's episode is a pretty intense episode which has several mentions and or descriptions of SA and gun violence, so listeners should exercise discretion.
Aileen Carol Wuornos was going to be born as Aileen Pittman, daughter of Leo Dale Pittman and Diane Wuornos. But on the 29th of February 1956, in Rochester, Michigan, Aileen was born mere months after her parents separated. Leo Pittman was a child molester who had married Diane when she was just 15 years old. They divorced within 2 years of getting married. At 17, Diane was a single mother of two, Aileen and her older brother, Keith. And I don't know about y'all, but if I was taking care of two children at 17 all by myself, I would lose my mind.
I could never.
Diane did go on to have a bit of a mental breakdown, which is why she left her children in the care of her parents, Lori and Britta Wuornos, who lived in Troy, Michigan. Rumor has it that Aileen and Keith lived not only with their grandparents, but also two more adoptive siblings who were their biological aunt and uncle. This family is seriously screwed.
Wow.
But this ain't even the worst part. Lori and Britta seemed pretty set on raising the kids as their own. So on March 18th, 1960, they legally adopted both Aileen and Keith. As she grew, it was clear to everyone around them that Aileen had some issues. Her anger was always at the tip of her nose, and she just had a hard time creating and maintaining friendships in general.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine.
When she was around 10 or 12 years old, I think like Aileen realized her parents were her grandparents, and that just made it like worse. It just fueled the sour energy, if that makes sense. I mean, if this wasn't enough, like Grandpa Lori Wuornos was an alcoholic and a rather unyielding authoritarian. Allegedly, he once forced Aileen to watch him drown a cat or a kitten.
Oh my God, that's so trauma-inducing. Who even does that, man?
I mean, I don't know. Blame the patriarchy. The way I just sounded so like done. But okay, anyway, in and around 1962, Aileen and Keith start a rebellion against Lori for reasons along the lines of he's a liar and he's just generally very unpleasant to be around. So the siblings' first instinct points in one direction and one direction only: arson. Yeah, they just start setting things on fire willy-nilly, and during one of these instances, Aileen sustains scarring facial burns. Either way, this arson or this rebellion turned out to be a less than fruitful attempt at getting back at Lori, especially for Aileen, considering she was punished even further. Aileen would later claim that Lori would physically abuse and even assait her on occasion, allegedly forcing her to be intimate with one of his friends.
Disgusting. Ew.
아, 냄새. 아, disgusting한 냄새가 나요. 아, disgusting shit.
In 1970, Aileen was 14 and also pregnant.
Wow.
Yeah. Some say that this child was a result of her having to get intimate with Lori's friend or friends. I don't want to know. If that's true, how long must that have been going on, right? You know what? That's another question.
I don't even want to know, man.
Yeah, me neither.
This is mortifying.
Lori was not happy with this development, obviously. So he sent her to an unwed mother's home till she delivered her child. Now, pregnancy is a lovely thing, right? But not every woman is built the same. I'm sure the staff at this place was well trained and well equipped to cater to all different types of expecting mothers. But Aileen turned out to be especially difficult. I mean, she's 14. Remember how I said remember how I said she had a hard time making friends when she was younger and how she got super angry super quick? Yeah, her temper hadn't changed much since. She was aggressive and she refused to comply with other mothers and staff. Just particularly tough to do with, you know? In any case, she gave birth to a baby boy and he was promptly put up for adoption around early 1971, after which Aileen is sent back to her grandparents' place. However, she wasn't gonna stay there for long. On July 7th, 1972, her grandma passed away due to cirrhosis of the liver. Some sources say she was an alcoholic, allegedly. Diane receives this news and invites Keith and Aileen to come live with her. Initially, the siblings didn't know how to feel. Sure, now with their grandma gone, there was no one to soften the blow of their grandfather's temper. So Diane's offer did seem tempting, but this was the same woman who abandoned them as children. So how were they supposed to just forget that? So ultimately, they refused, especially after Diane told them that they wouldn't be given the same liberty as they had allegedly received at their grandparents' house. In 1972, Aileen drops out of school because she decides that school wasn't for her, so she takes to hitchhiking and prostitution.
1972, wait, 1972, 1956, right? So she's like 16.
Mhm.
Wow. Okay.
The story picks up in May of 1974 when Aileen is incarcerated for the first time in Jefferson County, Colorado, as Sandra Kresh. Sandra Kresh is like it's one of her many aliases that she goes by, that you'll see.
Okay.
But yeah, Sandra had been charged with disorderly conduct. Yeah, disorderly conduct, driving under the influence, and firing a .22 caliber from a moving vehicle. Post her release from jail, she finds herself in Florida where she meets Louis Fell. He was a rich yachtsman. So despite him being 50 years older than her, the pair decided to get married. Yeah.
Brother,
Yikes.
What's that?
Yikes.
Louis would soon come to know of his new wife's true colors. When she beat him with his own cane, he left within a month.
This is a walking stick, isn't it?
Yes.
Got beat with his own walking stick.
He deserves it. What a pedo. Girl. Anyway. On July 13th, 1976, Aileen is arrested again for lobbing a cue ball at a bartender in a roadhouse in Antrim County. She also had outstanding warrants from Michigan that were served upon her arrest. On the 17th of July, he dies of throat cancer. On the 19th, Louis Fell is officially granted divorce from his marriage to Aileen. From September of 1976 to June of 1986, Eileen's life is pretty eventful, to say the least. The 10K USD that she'd received from her brother's life insurance had been spent within 2 months after she hitchhiked her way back to Florida. Within the decade, she was arrested several more times for several different reasons under several different names. Aileen is arrested for trying to cash forged checks in Key West. Lori Grody is detained in Volusia County for threatening someone with a gun. And Susan Blahovic is ticketed in Jefferson County for speeding. And by the way, just so people aren't confused, this is her. Different names, same person.
It's giving.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it's giving identity crisis.
Yeah. Right? And imagine how many fake IDs she'd had to, keep changing.
I know. Speeding though, that's kind of funny.
It's kind of funny. Imagine all her other crimes were just like gun violence, and then she has speeding, the most thing there is to
No, because you guys are saying this, and all I'm thinking of that she's really bad at being a criminal, if that makes sense. Because she's getting caught for speeding.
I don't think anyone gave a yeah.
Yeah, isn't that the entire vibe of the 80s, particularly in the States, that everyone was just love yourself, be free.
Yeah.
I don't know. Is this wrong? Am I just uncultured?
Till finally Aileen finds herself in a gay bar in Daytona Beach where she meets Tyria Moore and they begin dating. The start of their relationship was pretty strong, and they happened to move in together quite quickly. It's unclear as to why this happened so fast. Some say this was just due to the intensity of their relationship, while some say it was to share costs and earnings. Neither of them earned much to begin with, since Tyria was a housekeeper at motels and Aileen was a hooker who worked the highways. Eventually, things began to devolve when a highly possessive Aileen insisted that Tyria quit her job. Obviously, funds decreased now that Aileen was footing both their bills. Besides, Aileen never had a good rep on the streets. Her value was always on the low, if that makes sense.
Oh my
Um,
God, bro.
so
Mm,
now the
I hear you.
yeah. So now the pair had to move from motel to motel, sometimes even spending the night in abandoned barns in the forest just to make ends meet. Clearly, this lifestyle is it's not great. Yeah. However, Eileen wasn't gonna budge. She wanted Tyria to stay home. Oh my God, what kind of patriarchy is this? What do you mean?
But she's a woman.
Yeah, I know. That's
But
the thing. Like, it's giving
it is
patriarchy,
weird. It is weird.
but they're
It
women.
is weird. Yeah, it is. It is odd. I mean, like, under other circumstances, I get it. But in this circumstance, when they don't have the best lifestyle, then like, why would you? What's up with that? Mm.
But the fact of the matter was that they didn't have any money. They didn't have a place to return to. At the end of the day, they were struggling to say the least. The struggle persisted for 3 whole years till November 1989 when Eileen decided she'd had enough. Um, Within the span of these 3 years, another thing of note happened. Someone changed the locks to their flat 8 times. Meet Richard Mallory, 51-year-old electronics repair shop owner in Clearwater, Florida. Richard Richard was a total flake. Okay. There wasn't a single thing in life he was committed to. Wait, okay, no. I mean, there wasn't a single good thing in his life he was committed to. There were three things he did commit to: bottles, brothels, and being paranoid.
Oh,
Yeah, he always felt like something was coming for him. He had no friends. He didn't even keep employees. He was infamous for closing his shop for no reason other than to get wasted and to involve himself with women. This was an issue because people still came to him for repairs, to place orders, and he was never around so very often. He'd have a giant backlog of work to complete in very little time. That's why he would hire a couple people to help him out. And then after all his work was up to date, he'd fire them. This cycle would repeat itself over and over, ergo, it was no surprise to anyone when Richard didn't open his shop for a stretch of weeks between November and December of 1989. Richard would never open his shop again. On
oh my
December
God.
13th, a while after his 1977 Cadillac was found outside Daytona, Richard's body was found. James Davis and Jimmy Banshee were digging around for scrap metal to sell along the dirt roads around the I-95 in Volusia County, Florida. Instead, they came across a corpse wrapped in a carpet. They immediately called 911, and soon enough, the place is swarmed with cops. They could tell that the man had been shot repeatedly, and after the autopsy, cause of death was confirmed to be due to several gunshot wounds. They even found 2 bullets in his lung belonging to a .22 caliber gun. The police continue to investigate, but no leads turn up, especially considering Richard's disconnect from the rest of the world. And the case inevitably goes cold. All is quiet till June 1990. On the first day of June, a corpse of a man was discovered in the woods of Citrus County, Florida. An investigation is opened, and the cops have a suspect, Matthew Cocking. He was the dude who found this yet to be identified body, and was known to have a horrible temper. Furthermore, this corpse also riddled with bullet holes, and Matthew was known to carry around a gun. Almost 80 miles away, another body is discovered just south of Pasco County. This corpse was already pretty decomposed when the cops found him, and once again had sustained trauma from multiple gunshot wounds. The body was sent to the medical examiner, and although on such short notice they couldn't recover his prints or estimate time of death accurately, they did find 9 bullet shells in the carcass, once again belonging to a 22. Later on, this body is identified as Charles Carskaden. He had died on May 31st, 1990 at 40 years old. The next day, on June 7th, the second body is identified to be David Spears, who was last seen alive in May. And his truck was actually found before he was, abandoned and license plate less on the I-75. Matthew Cocking is finally cleared of suspicion. The very same day, 65-year-old Peter Seams, who had left his home in Jupiter, Florida, to visit family in Arkansas, is reported missing. He did indeed leave his house, but he never reached home in Arkansas. On the 4th of July, 1990, Rhonda Bailey had just stepped out on her porch to grab some air. She had family over for the 4th of July celebrations, and it was a blast. When she hears another blast, a car had just crashed to a halt a little off State Road 315 near her house, which is near Orange Springs, Florida. Two women, a blonde and a brunette, get out of the car, and they're having a horrible row. They're just going at it, screaming, yelling, cursing at each other. The brunette actually gets pretty quiet, most likely because she sees Rhonda watching them. But the blonde, she's just losing it. She's going to town on this other girl. Eventually, the blonde comes down as well, and they start using their indoor voices to talk to each other. The blonde turns and looks at Rhonda and begins to make her way over to her house. As she gets closer, Rhonda sees that her arm is dripping red, possibly from the car crash she gathers, just as the woman stands in front of her. She looks tired and slightly timid, but she clears her throat and goes, I'm so sorry about that noise. My friend and I just got into a little disagreement. My father's house is down the road, and we'll be out of your hair in no time. Please don't call the cops on us. Rhonda, unsure of what to say, simply nods, and the girl is back on her way to the car, after which both of them get in and resume their course. The car, however, did not take the girls very far, and they began their journey on foot and crossed paths with Hubert Hewell of the Orange Springs Volunteer Fire Department. He was driving down the road because he was called about this car crash, and on his way, he saw the two women walking up the road. So naturally, he stopped them and asked them if they were the ones in the accident. The blonde scowled at him and said no, and that they didn't want any help. So they went on their way, and Hubert continued on his.
Okay, can I just say though, I mean, someone snitched on them. I mean, like, listen, I know that they're probably criminals, but like, still, I mean, someone asked you not to say. I mean,
Rhonda snitched on them. Be so for real right now.
thank you.
We all knew Rhonda was gonna say it. She sounded like a Karen for real. Anyway.
Yeah, Rhonda sounds like a Karen. No cap. Rhonda, like what name?
Isn't Rhonda like a Malay word? Wait, Rhonda means Rhonda in Malay means wheels. Wheels on the bus go.
The Marion County Sheriff's Department finds the car that these two girls had abandoned in a few days. The car in question is a gray 1988 Pontiac Sunbird, and it is in bad shape. The outside has dents and scratches. The windshield and front window's glass is smashed. It has no plates, but worst of all, there are apparently bloodstains through the inside of the car. Although the plates were gone, the cops located the car's VIN number and ran a search through that, leading them to find that this car belongs to Peter Seams. John Wisniewski of Jupiter PD receives news of the fight and the car. He was in charge of Peter's case. He promptly sends out a synopsis of the case and the description of the two women with sketches to Florida's legal bulletin. After that, all he had to do was wait, but no one wrote back, and the case went cold. On July 20th, Troy Burress is reported missing. The 50-year-old had left his office headquarters at Gilchrist Sausage. I'm sorry. Name's just really funny. Ocala, Florida, to make his deliveries from which he should have returned in the afternoon. When he didn't, his manager made some calls and realized that he hadn't shown up at the last few stops on his route. That night, his manager and her husband go out to search for him. At 2 in the morning, his wife reports him missing, and the Marion County Sheriff's Department springs to work immediately. By 4 a.m., they find his truck 20 miles east of Ocala. It is unlocked, both its keys and Troy are missing. On August 4th, in Ocala National Forest, a family out for a picnic stumbles across the decomposing corpse of a man. Mortified, obviously, they call 911. The authorities take the body in, and by this point, he's unidentifiable. The medical examiner concludes that the cause of death is 2 gunshot wounds by a .22 caliber, one to the chest and one to the back. The cops decide to call Troy's wife in to identify the body, because A, he was missing, B, this body was found pretty close to his abandoned truck. When Mrs. Burress sees the body, she makes a positive ID, confirming that was Troy's corpse. The cops open a case and they suspect a transient, but they soon realize that their suspect wasn't involved, and once again, the case goes cold. September 11th, 1990, 56-year-old Charles Richard Humphreys disappears post his 35th wedding anniversary. He was a retired U.S. Air Force major, former chief of police, and at 56, he was in charge of looking after injured children at the Florida Department of Health and Rehab Services. The next day, towards the evening, his body was found in Marion County. Cause of death, once again, was due to being shot 7 times with the .22 caliber. 6 of the bullets were still in him, and the 7th was never found, since it went through his wrist. Later that month, the authorities would find his car in Suwannee County. The final nail in the coffin comes in early November of 1990 when Walter Antonio disappears. On occasion, a security guard and a member of the Reserve Police. On the 19th of that month, his body was found in Dixie County, and he'd been dead for less than a day. Cause of death was, of course, 4 gunshot wounds with a .22 caliber gun. Thrice to the back, once to the head. 5 days later, his car is found across the state in Brevard County. Notice how we're jumping from county to county, like, girls, like, come on.
Yeah, I see that. I'm actually just surprised that no one else is seeing that.
At this point, people are just scary. Stop killing people.
I choose the bear.
Stop that.
Real. You're so real for that.
Captain Steve Vinegar, who commanded the Criminal Investigation Division of the Marion County Sheriff's Office, had been losing sleep over this. He knew about the crimes in the other counties in Florida, and the similarities were too stark to ignore. So he reaches out to the agencies in the other counties and assembles a task force to solve this string of serial killings. He comes to the conclusion that whoever murdered these men had to appear non-threatening to them, since the trend of picking up hitchhikers had long since died down. Their perp was a woman, and Captain Steve suspected the pair of women who were involved in the car accident on the 4th of July. What can I say? Always underestimate us. That's your fault. You're dumb. It's not our fault.
I mean, okay, first of all, like, valid. That's such a valid point. But I want to point out something totally unrelated.
Mhm.
And it's just because of the brain rot at this point. But, like, isn't Captain America's name also Steve?
It's 4th of July. Oh my god. Oh my god. I don't know what Captain America's name. Again. Steve Rogers? Wait, no, yeah, Steve Rogers. Okay. Steve. Damn. This is, I don't know exactly.
A few moments later.
I just think it's odd. I don't think it's odd. I just coincidence that like his name is also he's also referred to as Captain. I wanted to say coincidence, but then I sound basic, so I tried to pull something, but it didn't work out.
6.5 hours later.
So he takes the case report, the descriptions and sketches of the woman, and turns to the media for help. Towards the end of November, Reuters ran the story saying cops suspect 2 women for a string of murder in Florida. Local newspapers within the state pick up the story as well and print the police sketches of the suspects. It isn't long before leads start pouring in. A man from Homosassa Springs said the 2 women had rented a trailer from him a year earlier. Their names were Tyria and Lee. A woman from Tampa calls in to say the 2 women had worked at her motel, which was south of Ocala. Their names were Tyria and Susan Blahovec. Another anonymous person told the police that the 2 women, Tyria and Lee, bought an RV in Homosassa Springs. These names are getting to me. But the real tip came in from Daytona PD at Port Orange, who had been tracking the pair's movements from late September to mid-December. The 2 had mainly stayed at the Fairview Motel in Harbor Oaks, where Lee Blahovec introduced herself as Cami Marsh Green. For a hot second, they did move out to a small apartment near the motel, but returned to it pretty quick, only to leave again in early December. After which only Cami returned and stayed till December 10th. The next step in the investigation was background checks. Who was Tyria Moore? Who was Susan? Or Lee? Or Cami? Or what the The cops had to find an actual ID and any record of prior arrests or criminal rap sheets. Tyria was clean. She did have one charge of breaking and entering, but it had been dropped. The photo ID for Susan Blahovec and Cami Green didn't match, and Susan had 1 arrest for trespassing. Cami didn't have any priors, but she did have a paper trail. Naturally, the cops follow it. At this point, she has so many aliases, I can't even keep up.
That's valid. That's valid.
Like, what even is her real name? I forgot her real name. I don't even know. Amazing. Oh, right. Aileen Wuornos.
But Aileen is such a nice name, to be honest. I don't know.
Yeah, it is a nice name, but apparently, like, pretty early on, only, like, literally just one place said this, which is why I didn't include it. But pretty early on, when she was, like, around 10 or 12 years old, she started to, like, go by Lee. Like, Aileen, Lee.
Oh. Makes sense.
Yeah.
No wonder.
In Daytona, Cami had pawned off a camera and a radar. And then in Ormond Beach, she had pawned off a set of tools and left a thumbprint on the receipt. The cops went to investigate the pawned goods and found that the tools were the ones said to be missing from David Spears' truck. The camera and radar detector belonged to Richard Mallory. The authorities had found a connection and, more importantly, a thumbprint. Now it was just a question of comparing the print to the one in the national database. But it wouldn't be that easy, since that comparison didn't give any matches. They actually had a woman from Fingerprint ID, Jenny Ahern, flown down to Volusia County, and she physically searched the records there. Within an hour, she found a match to a woman who had an outstanding warrant, Lori Grody. Next, they compared Lori's prints with the bloody handprints found on the inside of Peter's car, and they matched. Soon, all this information is compiled and sent to the National Crime Investigation Center, with the message going, hey, do these prints match with anyone else anywhere in the country? And they they do because a match comes in from Michigan. Finally, the cops realize that Lori Grody, Susan slash Lee Blahovic, and Cammie Marsh Green were all, in fact, the same person. Aileen! On the
Wow!
Wow,
Congratulations.
one thing you'll notice from like every episode from this season is that everyone is just like slow.
I know,
I
right?
mean, I suppose it's pretty easy to see it like that from an outsider, but like, I get it, honestly. Like, if I was like a cop in the 90s, and someone from the other side of like the state was like, hey, yo, did you know that there was a murderer here? And I would be like, wow, that's wild. And then I wouldn't think about it. I would forget. So, like, I can totally understand that.
Literally, all there was like, one column in one newspaper, like, man is murdered in National Park. No one knows who he is. Please let us know if you know who he is. That's it. The chances of you like skimming through that, it's rare.
Yeah, especially at that time, like social media is not a thing, so like I feel like nobody really knows it. Unless you're there like as a witness, then you really don't know. But now it's a different story, because like someone gets murdered and like everybody knows who it is.
Now there's CCTV cameras, and also everyone just takes videos now. Even if they see someone getting beaten up in front of them, they'll just take a video. They won't even stop them. They'll just take a video.
Yeah.
Of Taylor's guard beating up a student. Oh my god, what happened? Wait, you guys don't know? No! Oh my god, I need to write this down. We need to put this in the group chat. Yeah, wait, there's like a video, like dude was taking a video from his car of like this guard beating up the student, and he didn't even do anything about it, he just took a video. He was just like watching him getting beaten up, like literally. Like dude was going ham. Dude was going ham on his face. Yeah. It was actually apparently it's not like the guard is not from Taylor's. Apparently, he's just a guard that it was in the Taylor's compound. But I don't think he's from Taylor's. If I don't know when I'm correct, but like that's what my friend said. That is not from Taylor's doing at Taylor's though. I don't know. That's what my friend said. That's so creepy. That's so creepy.
3 weeks later.
So on the 5th of January, 1991, the manhunt officially began. Their strategy sends out officers in pairs, and their endgame is to have a soft, gradual takedown. On the 8th of January, 2 cops, Mike Joyner and Dick Martin, who were undercover as drug dealers, Bucket and Drums, spot Aileen in the Port Orange pub. Obviously, they kept calm and didn't arrest her right away. Soft takedown and all that, when all of a sudden a couple officers from Port Orange PD enter and escort her out. Mike immediately dials their commanding officers at the command post where the task force had assembled to work the case, and tells them that, yo, we have a problem. Some uniforms just came in and took her outside. Bob Kelly of the Volusia County Sheriff's Office calls the Port Orange police station, tells their officers basically to back off, like, and not, make an arrest. This message is relayed to the officers just in time, and Aileen returns to the bar shortly after. The officers at the task force realize that the almost arrest was just good cops being good cops, since the sting operation was on a need-to-know basis. In any case, after her re-entry to the bar, Bucket and Drums waste no time in making their way to her, offering Aileen a few beers and chatting her up.
Oh my god, can we Brooklyn Nine-Nine? Unfortunately, I decided, no, listen, I just imagined like Jake Peralta and like Amy being Bucket and Drums. Okay, let's be real. If there were 2 cops from Brooklyn Nine-Nine who were Bucket and Drums, it'd be Jake, it'd be Charles. Okay, fine. I was gonna say it was Scully Hitchcock, but sure. Even better. Let's go with that. Yeah, stop. They just don't even do anything. They manage to get themselves drunk and and like the perpetrator gets away. Yeah, like the few beers and chatting her up. That sounds like a Scully thing to do. That sounds like a Hitchcock Scully thing to do. You know what I'm saying? Oh my gosh, yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, love that. Unfortunately, or honestly, Jake and Rosa. Or like Gina and Terry, or like Gina and Rosa. Okay. Unfortunately, everyone, you know who I would Holt. He would just be fangirling over Holt the entire time. Well, yes, that she fits them so well, can I say? Like, Bucky is Amy and Young's is Holt.
Unfortunately, Aileen decided to leave at around 10 p.m., and when the officers offered her a ride, she declined. Their plans were ruined, at least for now, but the night was still young. The authorities tailed her to a biker bar called The Last Resort.
The Last Resort is an excellent name for a biker bar.
It is.
Yes.
Consequently, Bucket and Drums bump into her there as well. Okay. Wait, not to make it obvious. This is so Hitchcock and Scully. I'm sorry. And the three of them share a few more drinks and some light conversation. The two men called it quits after midnight, but Aileen stayed and spent the night at the bar. And the next day, on the 9th, the officers returned to The Last Resort in the late afternoon and begin to hang out with Aileen again. The original plan was to make the arrest later that night, but the cops had come to know that the bar was hosting a barbecue. They relayed this information to their superiors, who in turn give them the green signal, if you will, to make the arrest. Finally, they popped the question to Aileen. Hey, do you want to get a little freshened up at our motel room before joining the barbecue? Aileen takes a moment, thinks it over, and finally replies, "Sure, what the hell? Let's do it." After which, the trio leave the bar together. Upon exiting the bar, Larry Horzepa, hopefully I'm saying it right, of the Marion County Sheriff's Office, approaches her and tells her that she's being arrested for Lori Brody's outstanding warrant. As planned, the murders were not mentioned and the media was not informed. In rapid succession, Tyria is located in Pittston, Pennsylvania, with her sister on the 10th of January. Two cops, Jerry Thompson and Bruce Munster from Citrus Marion County, fly there to interview her. She's advised of her rights, made aware of what perjury is, and consequently questioned about Aileen. Tyria was pretty forthcoming, and she didn't try to hide anything, telling them that she knew about the murders from the start and all that. Apparently, Aileen had told her she had killed a man right after she murdered Richard Mallory. Upon hearing this, Tyria's response was, "Don't, please don't. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to know." Stuff like that. And she'd say the same thing again whenever Aileen attempted to tell her about the murders. She claimed that if she knew more about the murders, it would have weighed on her conscience more, and she'd feel more compelled to expose her to the police, which isn't something she felt she was in the position to do at that point of time. This was because although Aileen had told her that Aileen would never hurt her, right? She couldn't bring herself to trust Aileen, given how unpredictable she was. I mean, like, come on. She's crazy. Who knows what she's gonna do next?
She beat her like ex-husband, you know.
Oh.
You know, Tyria really said like, "Oh, what you don't know won't kill you." But yeah, the cops conclude the interview and persuade Tyria to fly back with them the next day to Florida so that she could help them extract a confession from Aileen, to which Tyria agrees. The plan was to place her in a Daytona motel, from which she would call Aileen in jail, claiming that she was the one being investigated for murder. And hopefully, out of loyalty towards her, Aileen would confess. And for the most part, that is what they did. Tyria was placed in a motel, and for like 3 days, she called Aileen in jail, telling herself like, "Oh, I'm so scared. Oh my God, I'm so scared. I'm being suspected for murdering like several men all around the state. I don't know what's happening. I'm scared. The cops, they're telling me everywhere. There's a cop outside my house. My family's home. Help me." Right? I only said all these things sarcastically because she's you know.
She's funny. Help me.
What are you trying to say? What What is she? What is she? Finish your
Conspiring with the
statement.
police.
But she had to have sold it. I'm sure she sold it pretty well. I mean,
Oh, okay, sorry. Let me repeat. Oh my God, I'm so scared. I'm being suspected for murder. Hey, I don't know how. I don't know what's happening. I'm scared. The cops, they're telling me everywhere. There's a cop car outside my family's home. Help me. Help me. I'm so big. It's all because of you.
that was awesome.
So on the 16th of January, Aileen summons detectives and confesses to murdering 6 men in self-defense and goes out of her way to assure them that Tyria was not involved in the murder in any manner. Upon this confession, the detectives start asking her about the murders. People say that whilst being questioned, Aileen kept changing and redeveloping her account of the murders to make her look better. Her main point was that she killed them out of fear when the men became aggressive with her. During the questioning, the public defender assigned to her told her repeatedly to stop talking, telling her, quote, "Do you realize these guys are cops?" Aileen replied with, "I know, and they want to hang me, and that's cool, because maybe, man, I deserve it. I just want to get this over with." Her words. Anyways, following this confession, the media was alerted, and pretty soon, book and movie offers started rolling in for the detectives' relatives, Tyria and Aileen. Before she knew it, Aileen was a media sensation, and she was recounting her story to anyone who would listen, altering the details, casting herself in a better light each time. She intended to mint millions off her story. You know what it's giving? It's giving that audio.
Participant. I was indispensable. I kept Walter White out of jail. I laundered his money, I lied for him, I conspired with him, and I made millions. If he hadn't walked into my office that day, Walter White would have been dead or behind bars within a month. And Agent Schrader and Agent Gomez and a whole lot of other people would still be alive. Fact is, Walter White couldn't have done it without me.
Now, what is one more element that every good crime thriller has? A twist. Some bizarre and unprecedented event that throws you off, right? For this case, that twist came in the form of Aileen Prowl. Aileen was a 44-year-old, born-again Christian. She saw a picture of Aileen in the paper, and she decided to write her a letter, which read, "I know you're going to think I'm crazy, but Jesus told me to write to you." Eventually, they start talking, like on the phone, active communication. Oh my God, is she like a Jehovah Witness? And high-key, Aileen dug it because Arlene was Eileen's #1 defender. What? Okay, her entire character was the crazy fan going, "If Aileen has 100 supporters, I'm one of them. If Aileen has 1 supporter, it's me. If Aileen has no supporters, I'm dead." She went on to convince Aileen to get new attorneys because her previous ones were allegedly just trying her case for the fame and media attention. Speaking of which, Aileen gave quite a few interviews in which she said, if the world knew the real Aileen, there's not a jury that would convict her. It's as though part of me is trapped in jail with her. She on crack or something, I don't know. We also know what the other is feeling and thinking. She even arranged for interviews with Aileen so that she could have a shot at speaking her truth. Throughout 1991, they went on to give several such interviews, and they'd always make Aileen to be a hero with a tragic backstory and antagonize everyone else to be corrupt villains who had organized a coup to trap Aileen and make money off of her story. And if that wasn't weird enough, on November 22nd, 1991, Aileen and her husband legally adopted Aileen as their own child. Because apparently God told Aileen that they had to, girl. I don't know who she's talking to.
Girl.
God. It ain't God. Let's be honest. In January of 1992, Aileen agreed to a plea deal arranged by her lawyers. The deal was that she'd plead guilty to 6 murders and accept a sentence of 6 consecutive life terms. But one specific state attorney believed that she deserved the death penalty, which is why around the 13th and 14th of January, Aileen goes to trial for Richard Mallory's murder. Right off the bat, the evidence against her was damning. Prosecution brought in the medical examiner who had conducted the autopsy on Richard's body and stated in court that it took him 10 to 20 minutes to die. Tyria testified that Aileen didn't seem upset or anxious or drunk when she told her that she'd killed Richard. The prosecution also presented evidence connecting her to the other murders. Now, normally this wouldn't be allowed, but thanks to Florida's Williams rule, it was made possible. So what's the Williams rule, right? It allows evidence from other murders to be presented in court to expose the connection between them. Like, so you don't have to draft it beforehand or something. Yeah, so that was made possible. Needless to say, Eileen's self-defense claim would make a much more compelling case if the only victim known to the jury was Richard. Bits of her confession, which had been recorded on video, were also played in court. This showed just how cool and remorseless Aileen was whilst she confessed to 6 murders. In the tape, she made easy conversation with the interrogators and told her attorney to keep quiet. Girl! Okay, they also played, the bit where she said, I took a life. I'm willing to give up my life because I killed people. I deserve to die, she said.
Wow.
As if this wasn't enough, Aileen actually insisted on testifying in court to make her case, despite her defense repeatedly telling her not to. By this point, her story had developed and redeveloped so many times that there was a pretty stark difference between the one from the tape in which she confessed and her testimony in court. Upon being cross-examined, she was completely obliterated in court by the prosecution. They exposed her flimsy attempts at storytelling, and they exposed her little media stunts too, in which she tried to gain fame and money. Throughout this exchange, people could see Aileen visibly getting more livid with every passing moment. Once again, her lawyers indicated to her repeatedly that she shouldn't answer any of the prosecution's questions, but being the defense's only witness, she did. And in doing so, she invoked the fifth 25 times whilst testifying in court.
That's crazy. That's insane. Like, first off, right off the bat, just her telling her lawyers to shut up. Mm-hmm. And then when your lawyers advise you to do something, they're probably doing it so that you don't, get killed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and her reaction is just like, no, I'm gonna do whatever I want to do. And in doing that, she's just like, I'm not gonna answer any of your questions because what if I say something that exposes me further?
Yo, isn't this like Arlene? Like, maybe Arlene got to her. Maybe Arlene got to her with the whole like rebirth thing.
Maybe. Nothing. To be fair, I didn't read anything of the sort or anything that implied something like that. That Aileen put it in her head that she had to be reborn.
It's just a speculation. I mean, it makes sense because they were in touch and she even like adopted her. So.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I see what you're trying to say.
It's weird, like adopting a full-grown person. Like, It was no surprise when the jury found Aileen guilty of first-degree murder and recommended she be put to death by electric chair. The judge presiding concurred and passed the very same sentence around the last day of January in 1992. Towards the end of March and the start of April, she receives 3 more death sentences. Some sources say she pled guilty. Some say she pled no contest to the murders of Charles Humphreys, Troy Burris, and David Spears because she felt like she had to get right with God. In June of that year, she pleads guilty to the murder of Charles Carskadon. Following that, in November, she receives another death penalty. Lastly, in February of 1993, she pleads guilty to the murder of Walter Antonio, for which she receives her sixth death sentence. It was almost a decade later, on the 9th of October 2002, when Aileen was executed in the Florida State Prison near Starks, Florida, by lethal injection. Her last words were, "I just like to say I'm sailing with the rock, and I'll be back like Independence Day with Jesus. June 6th, like the movie, big mothership and all. I'll be back." That is so unsettling. Why does she have to? She's batshit crazy.
Yeah, that seems pretty accurate, actually. I would want my last words to be "I'll be back" too, you know. I'll be back. It just seems like a pretty neat way to, you know, end, as you were saying, a pretty good crime thriller. Like, okay, imagine this. Like the camera just pans in on her face, like super close, as she says, "I'll be back." And they slide the black hood over her face, and that's it. Like the camera just continues to like zoom in on the black hood, and before you know it, the entire screen is black, and the end, the credits are rolling. You know, get it? Are you seeing? What's happening?
Yes, I see.
Yes, thank you.
I'm seeing, yes. It's like adding like a sort of dramatic end to everything. I mean, she is kind of dramatic, let's be honest. It's giving born to be actor, forced to be serial killer. With that, Eileen's story comes to an end. So what do y'all think?
I'm just really hung up on Arlene, honestly. Like, I'm not even, like, no disrespect to Aileen. Eileen's, like, I know this is her story and all, but Arlene, what was going on inside her head? That's what I want to know. What do you mean you were born again? What do you mean, God told you to do stuff, so you did? What do you mean? Like, don't be shy. Don't be shy. Drop, drop the handle. Drop it. But yeah, I can't wrap my head around that character. She seems so bizarre.
The thing about like all this like God talk, God talk is like how do I say it? Because a lot of times like all this like religious stuff can be very like it's not spooky, but like they use it for like a lot of reasons, in a sense that they can just say like God this, God that, and they quote like a random Bible verse.
Yeah, I was gonna say, in church, they tell us really often that the devil speaks the Bible as well. So you really need to, when you hear stuff like this, you need to be aware of who's saying it and in which context they're using it, because they could just very well be using it,
for their own
yeah.
good. Yeah.
Because again, like if you was evil, okay, if you was the devil, you would like know how to coax the person, you make it look like you're, the false god and whatnot. So
yeah. So I was like watching like a Netflix show the other day.
Oh, The Unholy, is it?
Oh no. What's The Unholy about?
It's about like this girl who says she saw like Mother Mary, but actually it was like the devil in disguised. Like the devil disguised as Mother Mary. Like it was a demon who was talking to her.
Okay.
And she was going around telling people like, oh, she came to me and she told me this. But actually, like, oh girl, I'm traumatized, by the way. But it's actually like a demon. a demon was telling her all these things so that, everyone would sell their soul and go to hell. But yeah.
Yeah, Alicia, what show were you watching?
Yeah.
What show were you watching, Alicia?
No, because I was watching a show. It's called Gentleman on Netflix. It's like, the Divergent dude. Theo James, yeah. The reason I watched this show is because I saw his face on the poster.
Yes, I wanted to watch it as well. I wanted to watch it because I saw him.
Yeah, Slay. I mean, I think I don't know whether you like it, but it's like set in the UK. And then it's apparently like because like his brother got into trouble with this mafia family. And then this mafia family, right? It's so weird because they're using the Bible to like what Crystal said for their own like glory. Like they think they're like some god and stuff. So there's this one scene where he was like torturing a dude, like because mafia all they do is torture people. Yeah. So like they was torturing a dude, and then he was like saying out the John 3:16, like the very famous quote, no one goes to like heaven except through me. He was saying like then he was like he was like reading Bible verse when he's like killing people. It was like so ironic.
That's dark.
Yeah. The parallels between this case and a good crime thriller are pretty hard to ignore, which to be honest is pretty ironic in its own way. So how do you think this case compares with a quality piece of fiction? What elements do you enjoy in a crime thriller, and were any of them present in this case?
Let us know what you think, or if we missed out on anything in the comments. We'd love to hear from you guys, and us rookies would be super grateful for any feedback or constructive criticism you'd have for us.
All our source material will be linked in the description in case y'all want to check that out. That will be all for today's episode. We hope it was thrilling or spooky, or at the very least, we hope you learned something new. We'll be back on Friday, so stay tuned. Yours truly, this was Ace Entertainment signing off for the very first time. Until next time, bye!
Good night!
Good morning!
Have a good one. Stay safe.